Hello and welcome to a new video from me. Today I am talking about military laws in the Bible because someone lately asked me how is it possible that we go to the war front as soldier and at the same time that we can keep the laws. What are the laws in the military? And we have to know that we are also in the spiritual realm in our battlefield. We are not on a playground, we are not on a chilling Jordan. And we first go through the major part of the military laws, and the first thing we have to say, while the Bible promises a time that there will be no war in Isaiah 2 verse 4, it also shows that the fate of a nation to be subject to war and to provide for the laws and the rules for war in dealing with the enemy nations. In no instant did Christ condemn national defense, but rather only unrestrained aggression. Matthew 26 verse 52. Christ had in fact commanded his disciples to be armed so as to defend themselves. Luke 22:36. War this can exist for purpose of defense, and in John's vision, Christ is depicted as leading armies waging war for the cause of righteousness. Revelation 19:11-16. In the Old Testament, an army was raised by a kind of conscription of all the males population from 20 years old and upwards, and who are able, physically fit and trained to bear arms. A number of defense were recognized, and all who were fearfully of battle were exempt from service. Many of this is also in other laws, in other nations. Deuteronomy 20:10 says, when you go near to a city, when the Bible rules of a war require that an offer of peace be made to enemy forces before attacking them. Deuteronomy 20:10 says, when you go near to a city to fight against it, then proclaim an offer of peace to it. This was to give the opposing forces the alternatives of either to surrender or battle, relieving the nations offering it from any wrong or fault. War this should be viewed as a last resort measure for those who delight in war as destined to be scattered. Psalms 68 verse 30. Then we have rules on conduct of war. When an enemy nation attacks, plead to God that he will deliver the enemies into your hand. Numbers 21-3. You are not to destroy the produce of a region besieged and occupied. Deuteronomy 20:19-20. Before a nation goes to battle, the people should pray to God that he will maintain their cause. 1 Kings 8:44-45. The use of spices toward enemy or hostile nations. Numbers 13:1-21. Numbers 21 verse 32. Joshua 2 verse 1. Joshua 7 verse 2. Priest kaplans are to encourage the people before battle that God will fight for them. Deuteronomy 20:4. The Lord your God goes with you into battle to fight for you against your enemies. Exodus 14 verse 14. Deuteronomy 20 verse 1 and 4. 2 Chronicles 13 verse 12. We should inquire of the Lord as the whether or not we are to go to battle with another nation. Judges 6:33 to 40, 1 Samuel 30 to verse 8, 2 Samuel 5:19 and verse 23. Blowing of a shofar before going into battle. Numbers 10 verse 9, Numbers 31 to 6, Joshua 6 verse 20, Judges 7:16 to 22. The conquering nation may take as spoil of war cattle, money, land, and goods of the defended nations. To the victor belongs the spoil of war. Numbers 31 9 to 11, Deuteronomy 2 verse 35, Deuteronomy 3 verse 7. Also Joshua 8 verse 2 and 27, 1 Chronicles 20 verse 2, 1 Chronicles 26 verse 27, Isaiah 10 verse 6 and Isaiah 10 verse 6. You shall not take as a spoil those things accursed of God, pagan artifacts, idols, etc. Joshua 7 1 to 2, Joshua 7 verse 11 to 13 and verse 21 to 26. Obtain from every evil thing when at war against your enemies. Deuteronomy 23 verse 9. You shall not unnecessarily oppress kind nations. You are at war with 2 Chronicles 28 8 to 15. The tabernacle of testimony is to be brought into the camp of the army. Numbers 1:50 to 53. When end come during a war, you are to cover up excrement outside of the camp. That is obviously hygiene, and that you keep God in the midst of you. Deuteronomy 23 verse 12 to 14. Cleanliness in a camp is to be maintained. Numbers 31 19 to 24. Deuteronomy 23 verse 9 to 11. The spoils of a war are to be divided between those who served in the battle and between all the inhabitants of the nations. Of the nation. Numbers 31 27 and Joshua 22 verse 8. When you besiege a city, you are to build bulwarks and fortified defenses within it until it's subdued. Deuteronomy 20 verse 20. Do not plunder or fight any nation without just cause. Psalm 7 verse 4, Psalms 35 1 and verse 7 to 8. When forces march out to battle, to detachment is to remain to watch over the camp. 1 Samuel 30 to 24. An army is divided into 3 divisions to divert the attention of the enemy and to conceal the attack. Judges 7:16, 1 Samuel 11 verse 11, 2 Samuel 18 to 2. Now we go about the armed forces. Males 20 years old and up to are to be mustered and enrolled for military service. Numbers 1 to 2 to 3 and verse 17 to 46. Numbers 2, Numbers 26 verse 2, 2 Samuel 18 verse 1. Only those who are able-bodied for war are to be enrolled for armed service. Numbers 1:3 and verse 17 to 46. Numbers 26 verse 2. Military leaders or captains are to be appointed over divisions of armed forces. Numbers 2 verse 2 to 29. Deuteronomy 29. 1 Chronicles 27 verse 1 to 15. Military chain of authority is to be established. Of officers over thousands, the captains over thousands, and captains over hundreds, and captains over fifties, and captains over tens. Numbers 31:48, Deuteronomy 1 verse 5, 2 Samuel 18 verse 1. Military aids assigned to aid officers with their equipment and in battle. Judges 9 verse 45, 1 Samuel 14 6 to 14, 1 Samuel 16 21. Military advisors or counselors are to be used in conducing war. Proverbs 10:18, Proverbs 24 verse 6. I need to establish different branches of the armed forces with different leaders, captains of the guard, 2 Chronicles 12 verse 10, captains of chariots and captains of the cavalry, 2 Chronicles 8 verse 9, chief of those armed with bows, 1 Chronicles 12 verse 2 to 3, chief of the infantry, Judges 20 verse 2. A chief of captains or general is to be established over the armed forces, one who has demonstrated his military ability, 2 Samuel 5:8, 2 Samuel 20:23, 2 Samuel 23 verse 8, 1 Chronicles 11:6, 1 Chronicles 12 verse 18. Exemptions and deferments from service. Those who are built, that means who are not allowed in the army or not yet allowed. Those who have built a new house and have not yet dedicated it may be deferred from service, Deuteronomy 20 verse 4. Those who have planted a crop but have not yet reaped its fruit can be deferred from service, Deuteronomy 20 verse 6. Those who are fearful of battle or faint-hearted are not to accept from service, Deuteronomy 20 verse 8. A man that has been married less than 1 year is not to go to war or to be charged with any military duties, Deuteronomy 27, Deuteronomy 24 verse 5. Ministers are not eligible for military service, Numbers 1 verse 47. Conduct towards enemies, that means how you should treat your enemy. When faced with the alternative of battle, we are not to be afraid of strong armies, Deuteronomy 20 verse 1, Joshua 11:6, Psalms 27 verse 3. Enemies are to be given an opportunity to surrender in peace before engaging in battle, Deuteronomy 20 verse 10. Enemies that surrender peaceable should be put under tribute but not killed, Deuteronomy 20 verse 11. If an enemy city or territory will not surrender in peace, but wills to war against us, we are then to go to war against it and besiege it, Deuteronomy 20 verse 12 and Joshua 11:19 to 20. We are not to destroy enemies taken captive or conquered, but rather provide for them, 2 Kings 6:22 verse 23. Heathen enemies within our own nations are to be totally destroyed, Deuteronomy 7 verse 2, Deuteronomy 20:16 to 18, Joshua 6:21, Joshua 8:24 to 28, Joshua 11 verse 1 to 11. The kings or leaders of an conquered enemy are to be executed, Numbers 31 verse 8, Joshua 8 verse 29, Joshua 10:23 to 26, also verse 28 and 30 and 39, Joshua 11:10 1 and 12. Judges 7:25. We are not to have pity or mercy on heathen and ungodly enemies, but are to destroy all those who God shall deliver to us. Deuteronomy 7 verse 2 and 16. A defeated enemy nation is subject to pay tribute taxes to the conquering nation. 1 Kings 9:21, 2 Kings 18 verse 14, 1 Chronicles 18 verse 21 and 6, 2 Chronicles 8 verse 8, 2 Chronicles 27 verse 5, 2 Chronicles 36 verse 3. All males of heathen nations are to be killed. Numbers 31 verse 7 and verse 17, Deuteronomy 20 verse 13, Joshua 11 verse 14. Prisoners of war, cattle and goods of a defeated nation are to be taken as a spoil. Numbers 31 verse 9 to 18, Deuteronomy 20 verse 14, Joshua 11 verse 14. We may take possession of the lands of defeated enemies. Numbers 21 verse 24 to 25 and verse 35. Reasons and causes of war. War and defeat may be brought by God as punishment for national sins. Deuteronomy 28 verse 25 and verse 49 to 53. Joshua 7 5 to 12. 2 Samuel 2 Samuel 12 to 9 and verse 10. 2 Chronicles 6:24 and verse 36. 2 Chronicles 12 verse 1 to 5, 2 Chronicles 24 to 23 to 24, 2 Chronicles 28 1 to 5, Job 19 verse 29, Jeremiah 42 verse 13 and verse 16, Ezekiel 25 12 to 13, Ezekiel 35 4 to 9, Amos 1 to 13 to 15. War may be of God or commanded by God. Numbers 25 to 16 to 18, Numbers 31, Deuteronomy 2 verse 24, Deuteronomy 7 verse 1 to 2, Deuteronomy Deuteronomy 16 to 17, Joshua 8:1, 1 Samuel 15 2 to 3, 1 Chronicles 5:22, Job 38 to 23, Jeremiah 51:20. Lust brings war and fighting. James 4 1 to 2. War as a defense form, unprovoked attack. Exodus 17 8 to 16, 1 Samuel 30 1 to 18, 2 Samuel 5 17 to 25, 2 Samuel 18 1 to 9. 2 Samuel 21 15 to 22. Evil men who continually stir up war. Psalms 100 verse 1 to 2. War is not to be undertaken, but by the will of God. Deuteronomy 1:41. Deuteronomy 2 verse 5 and 9 and 6, verse 9 and 19. 2 Chronicles 11 3 to 4. He that kills with the sword must be killed by the sword. Matthew 26 52 and Revelation 13:10. Peace and victory. There is a time for war and a time for peace. Ecclesiastes 3:8. If you walk in God's statutes and keep His commandments and do them, He will give you a peace in the land, and none shall make you afraid. Leviticus 26 verse 3 and verse 6, Psalms 100 165, Proverbs 3, 1 to 2, Proverbs 16 verse 2, Isaiah 32 verse 17 to 18, Isaiah 48 to 18. Victory against enemies in war is from God. Deuteronomy 7:23, Deuteronomy 24:4, Joshua 18:8, Joshua 10 verse 8 to 11. God will bless his people with peace, Psalms 29 verse 11, Isaiah 26 verse 2 to 3, Haggai 2 verse 9. The fear of God is in our enemy can prevent war. 2 Chronicles 17 to 10, 2 Chronicles 20, 29 to 30. God causes peace and wars to end. Psalms 46 verse 9, Psalms 147, 14, Isaiah 45 verse 7. When our ways please the Lord, he makes our enemies to be at peace with us. Proverbs 16 verse 7. In abundance of counselors there is safety. Proverbs 11, 14. Pray to God for deliverance from enemies, and that they may not triumph over you. Psalms 25 verse 2, Psalms 31, 15, Psalms 59 verse 1. If a people listen to God and walk in his ways and turn to God with prayer and repentance, he will release them from captivity and subdue their enemies. Exodus 23 verse 22 and verse 27, 1 Kings 8 46 to 50, 2 Chronicles 6 24 to 25, and verse 36 to 39, Psalms 81 verse 14. The commandments of God makes us wiser than our enemies, Psalms 119 verse 98. Wisdom is better than weapons of war, Ecclesiastes 9 verse 18. But if we have to be under war, military laws in the Bible, primarily in Deuteronomy 20, detail rules of ancient Israelite warfare, and it is even until now, including exemptions for men with new homes, new planted vineyards, or who are recently betrothed, and those who are fearful and faint-hearted. The laws also mandate offering terms of peace before attacking a city, dictate the treatment of conquered people. New Testament teachers such as Romans 13 establish the state's authority to use force for justice and order. Old Testament regulations from Deuteronomy 20, we read it later in the whole incomplete. This passage provides specific guidelines to conduct in warfare. Exemptions from service. A priest addresses the people and officers grant exemptions to men who have built a new house but not dedicated it, planted a vineyard but not yet enjoyed its fruits, betrothed a woman but not yet married to her, fearful and faint-hearted so that they don't discourage their comrades. Rules of engagement. Before attacking a city, Israel was to offer terms of peace. We do it still, but when they don't allow it and when they don't want it, well, you see nowadays what happens. If terms were accepted, the conquered people became forced laborers, that means taxes. If the city resisted, all the men were to be killed, while women, children, animals, and valuables could be taken. Exceptions for Canaanite cities. These rules for warfare did not apply to the city of Canaan. The land of Israel was meant to conquer, were different, harsher actions were prescribed. New Testament says governmental authority. Romans 13 states that human governments, including the military, are established by God to wield the sword to carry out divine justice and punishment and punish wrongdoers. just force. Serving in the military is not inherently evil, and the New Testament acknowledges the need for force in military actions, particularly for the defense of the innocent and for maintaining peace. Underlining principles, divine trust. The laws emphasize that the outcome of battle belongs to God, and the people should trust in Him, not just in their own strengths. Compassion community. The exemption for new home owners, vineyard planters, and recently engaged women show compassion for personal circumstances and a recognition of the impact such events have on family and community. Justice and order. The laws, both Old and New Testament, affirm the principle of the military force when used justly and legitimate authority serve the purpose of God. And we go also now in the Jewish way of the permission, because military is more. We want to discuss now a little bit the Israeli way of going into war. And I read also from the Talmud. Morality and war in Judaism. When the prophetic view of the end of days is expressed in the words, and they shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. Isaiah 24. But until those days arrive, there may be times when war is required. In such circumstances, halakha, that means laws, views war as a necessary and participation therein as an obligation under certain circumstances. A soldier acting in accordance with halakha may not include the naked exercise of force, brutality, and vandalism, but rather must be guided by the recognition of an obligation imposed by an exigency brought about by reality. The Torah establishes the boundaries of what is permitted and forbidden in war for both individual and for society, with the view of achieving the military objective by striking a balance between the recognition of the nature of soldiers in war, who must at times be permitted to behave in ways that would be forbidden in peacetime, and the need to imbue those soldiers with qualities of compassion and holiness even during the time of war. It is instructive that the laws of prayer and of the sanctity of the synagogue are diverted from the laws governing a military camp. Although under certain circumstances the Torah views war as an obligation incumbent among every man in Israel. King David was not allowed to build the temple because he fought many wars, 1 Chronicles 22 verse 7 to 18. This explicits the potentially problematic nature of war and the need to strike an operative balance between single-minded combat against the enemy and preserving the moral status of the combatants. In this entry, we will look what is going on. The sanctuary of the camp in the time of war. The Torah states, Deuteronomy 30, 23 verse 10, when you go forth against your enemies and are in camp, you shall keep yourself from every evil thing. In the Tanaitic Midrash, the sage interprets this verse as implying a special warning in time of war to be careful regarding matters of defilement, impurity, Titus, incest, idolatry, bloodshed, and slander. In this commentary to Deuteronomy 23, verse 10, Nabonidus, that's part in the Talmud, explains that human nature is such that mortal restrictions are loosened at time of war, and we shed the sense of shame felt in normal human society with regard to such acts as licentious and theft. This is a byproduct of a cruelty that envelopes soldiers when they go to war. The Torah therefore saw need for reinforcement of these matters through a special prescription. In the ensuing verses, the Torah cautions about purity and physical cleanliness in the military camp. The Shexus concludes that a general explanation that these commandments are required so that the divine presence not abandon the Israelite camp, because the Lord your God walks in the midst of your camp to save you and to give you up your enemies before you. Therefore your camp must be holy, that he may not see anything indensed among you and turn away from you. Deuteronomy 23 verse 15. Discernity, war and application in war. The Mishnah distinguishes between two types of war: discernatory war and obligatory war. According to Maimonides, that is one of our greatest teachers, an obligatory war is like to fought by Joshua to liberate the land of Israel from the 7 nations, that the war to eradicate Amalek, or a war to defend Israel against an enemy that attacks them. A discernatory war is one undertaken to extend the borders of the state, such as a war fought by King David. And there are so much more things like this, and I will link the article down below that you can find out for yourself, that Israel has a higher understanding of war, and it means also that God has an army. We are called to be his soldiers. We go to the Bible. Because we are soldiers. We are soldiers. Ephesians 6:11-18 says we are in a war. About the full armor, I link the video. Psalms 144 verse 1 says, "Blessed be the Lord my rock, who trains my hands for war and my fingers for battle." 2 Timothy 3 verse 3 and 4. Share in suffering as a good soldier of Christ Jesus. Romans 3 verse 4. For he is God's servant for your good, but if you do wrong, be afraid, for he does not bear the sword in vain. For he is a servant of God, an avenger of those who carries out God's wrath on the wrongdoer. And John the Baptist said to the soldiers in Luke 3 verse 14, Soldiers also asked him, "And what shall we do?" And he said to them, "Do not extort money from anyone by threats or by false accusations, and be content with your wages." Joshua 1 verse 9 says, "Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous, do not be frightened and do not dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go." John 15 verse 13 says, "Greater love has no one than this, that someone lay down his life for his friends." Deuteronomy 31 verse 6. "Be strong and courageous, don't fear or be dreaded of them, for it is the Lord your God who goes with you. He will not leave you or forsake you." We are not to be afraid of fighting for what is good. And we are commanded to stand strong and to go in battle. We are on a battleground. We are made to stand strong, to stir up, stand for the truth. And you know what? When you stand for the truth, you will get trouble. You will get much in trouble. That will be another video. But if you stand for what is good, you will have wars in your own, even in your own life. And I hope you understand that God does not forbid war. He himself is a Lord. He is a very war hero of Exodus 15 verse 3. I don't know what you think. I don't know how you think that God has placed us in a fantasy land. No. He has placed us into a battlefield. And I will link everything at the end of the video, and I hope this video helps you to understand that there are laws to be kept, and that you that going into battle with the Lord, it is necessary, because we are called to establish His kingdom on earth. I hope this video has helped you, and thank you for watching. Shalom.